Hey, it's Guy DiMartino and Tony Ashford. Today, we're going to spend a few moments and discuss this whole idea of making a claim for damage to your property, whether it's your home or business. And one of the things that we see is that many times when folks have difficulty with the insurance company, they don't know where to turn. So many times they'll go ahead and call their divorce lawyer or somebody who handled a bankruptcy or somebody who handled an injury case, or somebody who does business transactions. And just because somebody's a lawyer doesn't mean that they know how these claims work. So, what would you recommend for somebody who has a problem with an insurance company after a loss of a home or a loss of a business?
Okay, there's a big difference between retaining a general practice attorney or even some of the best business litigation attorneys. Like say you have a big firm in your state and you assume that, oh, if I go to the biggest law firm, they're gonna give me the most amount of help for an insurance claim. It's important to retain somebody if you're handling an insurance claim, say you're having a fire or a water damage. It's extremely important to have somebody that really understands insurance and insurance law. The first part of it, just to give you an idea, most attorneys do things on an hourly basis. And let's talk about the initial thing. Let's say an insurance policy. You come in, you got an insurance claim. The first thing any attorney is going to want to do is to take a look at your insurance policy. A lot of these insurance policies, if you have a business policy, the policy itself may be 350 pages. If you're a homeowner, your policy may range between, say, 40 to 120 pages, sometimes more, depending on the number of coverages that you have. An attorney that's not really knowledgeable in insurance claims doesn't know where to begin. Do you want to pay an attorney hourly to look over a 350-page insurance policy as opposed to contacting an attorney that's been doing this stuff for 20, 30 years and can figure out your coverages in a matter of minutes? Even if it's a 350-page policy, I can look through most any policy you can throw at me, no matter how big it is, and I know where to look for the types of claims and policies at issue. And you can take, instead of me paying an attorney $10,000 to look at an insurance policy that's 350 pages, most of the time when I do a letter, I may charge $500 or $1,000 to do a letter. It's because I know the coverages, I know the policy, I know how to weed my way through it, and I can figure out the issue and the resolution of it very quickly rather than having to charge you a boatload of money to review a policy. So that's the first part.
Okay, so when we talk about reviewing policy, these policies are 300 pages, or the policy language regarding any type of potential coverage might only be a page. However, you have to know to take that and then look, are there any endorsements? Are there any amendments? Are there any exclusions? And so we're able to pinpoint because all these cases have certain issues that you need to understand. You need to understand, is what you're complaining of a covered loss under the policy? Or is it something that is excluded out? Is it a all risk policy, which means you have to show that it's a covered loss and then the onus goes on the insurance company? Or is it a specific peril insurance company? So these are things that we know to look at from point one, and we know where to look in the table of contents to at least give us an idea of where we need to look in that 300 pages.
Yeah, one interesting point about insurance policies, which is different than most contracts. Most attorneys, when they're looking at a contract, it's a single contract. An insurance policy is a hodgepodge of contracts. So you may have, and in this instance, you're going to have, in most cases, a liability form, you're going to have a property form, you're going to have different endorsements that go into it, and understand what these things are. When you're talking about property coverage, say a dwelling, a building, or personal property, that's going to be a property form. That's going to be the standard basic form insurance policy. But unlike most contracts, the policy form is going to have additional endorsements. What are endorsements? They're basically changes to the policy form that either add, limit, or exclude coverage. So you start off with the base form, and then once you go through the base form, you're going to have these endorsements. And you know exactly what you're dealing. The average person that gets an insurance policy, you pay for your coverage, You may or may not get a policy form at the beginning of coverage. And then each year that you renew, sometimes most companies will just give you the endorsements. So any changes in the policy from year to year to year, you're getting them as well as your declarations. Well, the first part, the basic Bible of insurance coverage, are going to be your policy declarations because they identify not only what your coverage limits and types of coverage that you have, they will also identify the endorsement forms that go along with it. So what's interesting about insurance coverage is that you may be completely covered on your basic policy form, but then when you go to the endorsement, it completely eliminates or changes that coverage. The other thing is you may have something that's excluded on the base form. Let's say, for example, sump and backup. There may be, or ordinance and law. These are typical things that are excluded on the base form of property coverage that are then either added back in through endorsements. So the way they would do it is they would say, we're not responsible for, let's say, for example, undamaged parts of the property that must be improved based upon ordinance or law. They exclude it from coverage, and then there's an endorsement for ordinance and law that says, well, we'll pay for this stuff, but we'll only pay up to a certain amount, or we'll only pay for certain things. So they start off with taking away coverage, and then they build it back with an endorsement. Or, for example, let's say you have a
We see it
Rolex.
with mold. We see it with mold all the
We see it
time.
with mold all the time. Mold is something that's typically excluded on the policy, and then they'll bring it back if you pay for an endorsement. They'll give it to you, but they'll limit it. So you'll get like $5,000 in mold coverage. Or you can ask under the circumstance, going back to, I like to talk about sump and backup because that's pretty common, where it'll take it away on the base form, and then you'll have to ask for it, and then you get to decide what limits you want to add. And some companies will have a maximum limit for that. Some people will let you have more, but that goes into the whole decision making as to whether this is a proper policy, a proper company. If I have a big risk because I have a finished basement and I have a living quarters down there, and my carrier says, we'll let you pay for coverage for mold, or excuse me, sump and backup coverage, but only 25,000 or 50,000. Well, maybe you need to go to a different company because that's not going to be enough if you have a water backup or a sump backup.
And these are the types of issues that folks who don't deal with these issues just don't know how to spot. And, the practice of law, like many things, is sort of an apprenticeship. You sort of grow into it. A lot of these things don't come to our forefront until we're confronted with it in a case. And then we become, for lack of a better word, specialized on that because it's something that was a pinpoint in the case. So the more cases you handle, the more things that we see and the more issues or potential issues we see in the coverage language.
No doubt. And yeah, I can say both of us, we came from a background of starting doing defense work for insurance companies on these types of claims, learning that process, and then going over to the other side, the right side, handling insureds and protecting individuals against insurance companies. So we come from that perspective. And we have experience dealing with many different types of exclusions, many different types of policy language, and can work our way around it because of that experience.
And as a general rule, if it's a property damage claim that we end up wanting to take on, we don't charge an hourly rate. We charge a contingency, which means if there's no recovery, there's no fee. And so we become partners in that claim. We're taking on as much or more risk than our actual clients are because if they're not truthful, if they're hiding something from us, we've put our time, our energy, and our money into pursuing this claim, and then we find out that there is an issue. So we do take it on a contingency fee basis to help people because many people can't pay $400 or $500 an hour up front if they've been displaced because their home has been burnt down.
And one thing I can say too is we've created our practice to make sure that we're affordable to just about anyone, no matter how big your budget is or how big your loss or your risk is. The other thing is that there are certain things that we do either on a flat fee basis or on an hourly basis. If it's something that would help our client to be able to do it that way, we'll do it that way because there's a lot of things I can tell you. I've resolved some really big, hairy issues with insurance companies with a letter, with a phone call, solved more than $100,000 issue in a claim just on a phone call or a letter that I charged the client, $500 for. And if there's a way for me to do it more efficiently for my client, I'm going to do that because at the end of the day, we're here to help the insureds. We're here to help people, to level the playing field against the insurance companies. And for the most part, we don't charge people for consultations. If there's something that they contact us and it's something I can't help them on, I'll let them know right away. It's not something that I can really help you on. But don't worry, you can call me. I'm not going to send you a bill for that. We don't charge for things like that. The only time we charge a client is if we take a case on or if we're think we can get an issue resolved with a letter or something less significant. We're going to try to do the best we can to help our client out and put them in the best situation. I've had circumstances where I've rewritten my contracts that if it's something I can resolve within a couple of months, I'll just waive the contingent fee or we'll reduce our contingent fee to accommodate the clients so that they're not facing that burden if we don't have a lot into the case.
Okie doke. Are there any other issues that you want to discuss with this? I would remind folks that if you have any questions about an insurance claim, you can always reach out to us. If we can't help you, we'll give you, something that you can do on your own or potentially refer you to somebody who can.
I just want to point out one thing. It's my recommendation if you sustain a significant fire or water loss to consult with an insurance or bad faith attorney sooner rather than later. A lot of times we as advocates for the insureds can help resolve a lot of issues on the front end so that they're not struggling on the back end.
Any questions? Reach out to us. Thank you and have a great day.